Next up, we have Alex Dorsch, Managing Director and CEO at Chalice Mining. Alex has led Chalice through an exceptional growth period following the Julimar project discovery, one of the largest PGE and nickel sulfide discoveries in recent history. Alex has diverse experience in various leadership roles across the resources sector as a management consultant, engineer, project manager, and corporate advisor. He is passionate about supporting the development of young professionals and was recognised as New or Emerging Leader of the Year by Mining News and CEO of the Year by Kitco in 2020. Before joining Chalice, Alex worked as a specialist consultant with the global management consultancy McKinsey. Please welcome Alex. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. It's great to be back at the Diggers and Dealers Forum, and it's especially good to see all our East Coast colleagues in the industry across from that part of the world. So thank you to the forum, the organisers, and I think thank you to everyone in the industry for making this industry such a great place to work, and it makes me very proud to present to you the Chalice Mining story. So as it says there, Julimar, our key discovery of approximately 2.5 years ago now. Julimar is really the start of a new nickel copper PGE province in Western Australia. Western Australia hasn't had a PGE province or any sort of material PGE mining. And obviously you've just heard sort of from a couple of generations ago, the beginnings of the Nickel West business through the Western mining discoveries of the 1960s. That really kicked off now what is an incredibly significant nickel industry in Western Australia. And really Julimar is the beginning of hopefully another string to that bow for Western Australia, the beginnings of a very strong nickel and copper PGE business on the western side of the state. So our usual forward-looking statements and disclosures, these are available on our website should you wish to read them in full. To introduce Chalice, obviously we're a very recognised name now in exploration. We've got a track record of not only finding mineral deposits but finding mines and rewarding shareholders through that process. We have a high-performance team. We're a results-driven group of people, and we have a very strong commercial DNA as well as that mine-finding DNA. And our purpose is quite simple. We're here to find the metals needed to decarbonise the world. You heard Jess talk about the importance of nickel. There's obviously other very important metals that are going to be required in very substantial quantities to decarbonise the world. So that's really where we fit in. And our aspiration, as it says there, is to create a world-class multi-district green metals province with obviously the Julimar and West Yilgarn as the starting point. So Julimar, it's a major new polymetallic critical minerals discovery in Western Australia. So six payable metals, platinum, palladium, nickel, copper, cobalt, and a little bit of gold just to round it off. So it's a very, very unique combination of future-facing metals. We recently updated the resource base on the project in early July. That was based on 765 drill holes now drilled at the Gonville deposit. We have drilled over 900 drill holes now actually at the deposit, so I guess it's still very much a work in progress to understand the full resource base of this project. That now stands at 350 million tonnes at almost 0.6% nickel equivalent or 1.8 grams per tonne palladium equivalent. And importantly, we achieved a substantial increase in the geological confidence of that resource with now 70% of those tonnes in indicated category. So you can see the endowment figures there now, 11 million ounces of platinum group metals and gold, 560,000 tonnes of nickel, 360,000 tonnes of copper, 54,000 tonnes of cobalt. So in anyone's language, a very large accumulation in a single pit, I should mention as well, and with a small amount of underground material and a growing amount of underground material. That's equivalent to 2 million tonnes of nickel or equivalent to 20 million ounces of palladium. So a very significant discovery for Western Australia, and as I said, the beginnings of a new district and hopefully a new province of mines and deposits. Within that resource, I guess the focus of our initial work and the focus of the initial mining operation will be the higher grade part of the system. We're very fortunate that not only is it a very large disseminated sulfide resource, it's also got much higher sulfide lenses in the system. And there's 82 million tonnes now at approximately 1% nickel equivalent, most of that in a pit. And that extends from a depth of 30 metres below surface down to 700 metres plus. So we're still in the process of growing that resource, but a very significant, I guess, core to the system. The metals, I guess, go without saying. Like I said, they're very much the future-facing green metals, essential for decarbonisation. And our strategy here is at the project, as you can see, very close to Perth. It's a very unique set of circumstances to have a potential mining operation or a mining complex so close to Perth. Our strategy here is to essentially define the full limits of or understand the limits of the mineral system, not only at Gonville but at the Julimar complex as a whole, while we accelerate really Gonville through to production as quickly as we can. So we've got an immense amount of exploration upside here. Really, this is a story that's likely to unfold over many, many years. We've got 4 rigs drilling currently across the remainder of that 30-kilometre belt of mafic, ultramafic geology. So a lot of work to do as yet to really understand, whilst it's already a very large resource base, we expect the resource to grow materially over time. Julimar is capturing strategic attention from not only the Commonwealth but players through the industry and globally. For those who are not familiar with this picture, Russia accounts for approximately 40% of the world's palladium production. Palladium is an essential metal at the moment in internal combustion engines, but it will be an essential component of the hydrogen economy as well. And Russia accounts for 40% of that market and 20% of the battery-grade nickel market. So there's a big emphasis now for the Western world to find new deposits like Gonville or new complexes like Julimar, and that's what we've really done. We've put this area on the map, and the Commonwealth has been very strong in its support for projects like this. And we think that is obviously a very, very good thing, because these types of discoveries are becoming increasingly rare, especially in the safe jurisdictions like Western Australia. And battery manufacturers are really searching for reliable but also sustainable sources of battery-grade nickel. As you can see on that plot, the Class 1 nickel average, of which Julimar is a Class 1 nickel example, that is something like 20% of the carbon intensity of the growth part of the industry for nickel at the moment in nickel pig iron, obviously with Indonesia being the centre of that industry. So Class 1 nickel is substantially cleaner and greener source of nickel, and especially so when you consider the proximity of Julimar to the West Australian power grid, which is obviously planned to reduce its carbon footprint over time as well. So looking at the Gonville deposit, it's a rare Tier 1 scale near surface resource, as I said, with high grade optionality. So that's one of the very unique characteristics of this deposit. I mentioned the updated resource, which was just released about a month ago. It's a very large, accumulation of metals. As you can see, they're largely in a singular open pit, approximately 2 kilometres of strike length, and that pit extends down to approximately 600 metres below surface. But the resource, as you can see with all those open arrows on the bottom, it's very much wide open, and it will be the subject of ongoing resource and expansion of that underground category over time. Looking at the higher grade part of this resource, you can see that approximately a quarter of the tonnes have approximately double the grade, double the average grade. So that is an obvious place to start or focus the initial years of operations, and that could really materially enhance the commercial and the payback of the mine in the initial years. So the fortunate thing here is that some of the highest grade mineralisation we've ever intersected on the deposit is actually starting from very, very shallow depths, which is very unusual for those who are familiar with nickel sulfide deposits. The deposit remains open along the strike length. At the moment, really the drilling has been largely restricted to areas of farmland on the right-hand side of that green boundary there, and obviously the deposit we expect to continue into the Julimar State Forest to the north, or the left-hand side of the page. But before we even get there, as you can see, there's a very much a scarce or a paucity of drilling in the 800 metres between the limit of the resource and that actual state forest boundary. So there's a lot of growth just at Gonville alone. And that's why we've still got 2 diamond drill rigs continuing to step out, and really now stepping out on much wider spacing to scope the overall scale of this mineral system. How we intend to process these minerals, obviously it is early days in our understanding, but it looks like we have 2 potential processing routes, either selectively floating copper and PGE minerals into one concentrate, and then floating nickel, cobalt, and the remaining PGMs into a second concentrate. What that is making clear to us is that, and as all of the nickel sulfide players are looking at the moment, is that it likely warrants investigation into additional processing, especially on the nickel side. So we're looking at an alternative flow sheet, which is keeping the copper and PGE flotation circuit the same, but building some additional processing for the nickel and enriching that nickel concentrate, with the intent there that we could separate the nickel and cobalt into a mixed hydroxide product or similar, sell that directly to a battery manufacturer or a precursor manufacturer, and then effectively blend the remaining copper and PGEs with that copper concentrate. So that is a very exciting area of development for not only us but others in the industry. And what we know is that over time we're likely to get more and more robust understanding of that. But what we have seen thus far is that we have now sufficient metallurgical test work to be able to publish a scoping study, which we're obviously in process of completing. We're roughly a month away from completing and releasing that work. In the meantime, as I said, we need to understand the full limits of this mineral system. So this complex, we believe, extends for upwards of 30 kilometres, and we've really drilled out 2 kilometres of that strike length. So of particular note recently, for those who've been following, is the Dampier target, approximately 10 kilometres away from the limit of the resource, has been the source of some recent excitement with a 15 to 80 metre wide zone of sulphide mineralisation intersected in a very Gonville-like host geology. So as yet, we don't really have a lot of drilling in the 10-kilometre gap between Dampier and Gonville, but we are definitely enthused by the potential to add additional discoveries along this belt. The new mineralised zone at Dampier, it does extend at the moment over about 300 metres of strike length. As I said, very similar in characteristics, not only in the geology but also the sulphide mineralogy to Gonville, and that is a very, very exciting sign that this system has the potential to be a very broad and very extensive scale system. Sorry, we're frozen here. The early results really not only upgrade the prospectivity of the Dampier area, but also upgrade the prospectivity of the complex going southwest and also to the northeast. Unfortunately, we don't have access as yet to the northeast targets there at Baudin and Jans. We do have, though, 4 rigs drilling on the targets immediately southwest of Dampier. So we have very much upgraded the prospectivity of the Hahn and Hamlin targets there at the bottom left-hand side of that map. That's at the northern end of Hartog, and we're in the process of drilling the initial holes in those areas at the moment. But safe to say, a lot of work to do. If you consider a 10-kilometre strike length, you can imagine there's years and years worth of exploration here to fully understand this system. And then zooming back, I think most people would be familiar with the eastern part of WA in terms of its nickel endowment. Over 25 million tonnes of nickel that's been discovered in the eastern part of WA. We have now, I guess, the most exciting area for greenfield discovery is on the western side of WA, along the western edge of the Yilgarn Craton, in which we are very much in the driver's seat to drive this new province forward. So we have a total of 8,000 square kilometres of licence holding in this new area, essentially totally unexplored, totally undrilled. So we're doing very much ground up work, and that really is for us, the biggest potential value lever for this company to make additional discoveries along that belt. The Julimar project, it has the potential to deliver strong, economic benefits to that region, and we are committed, like most in the industry, that we must be strong environmental stewards. So we're doing the work that you would expect us to do to make sure that we build social licence to operate in that area. I mentioned the upcoming scoping study to be released for Gonville very shortly, and then we'll progress into a pre-feasibility study through the course of 2023, and then ahead of a mine proposal and the beginning of a regulatory approval process towards the middle of 2023. So to wrap up, I guess a very exciting new world-class strategic resource in Western Australia with significant exploration upside. Obviously a lot of work to do to fully understand this system and this province, but you're backing a high-performance team and a well-funded team with over 125 million in cash. And that track record speaks for itself. So thank you very much. And
thank you, Alex. We won't have time for questions, so we'll move on to our next presenter.